Welcome everybody to a session which confronts, in a way, one of the biggest challenges that any government, centre or state, is facing in India today, which is of course the challenge of job creation. Now, almost every recent survey, leaked or otherwise, is indicating that job creation is on a decline and that unemployment looks like it is on the up. So what we'll debate today is really, firstly, is there a jobs crisis in India? Where are the jobs? What is the role of the government in creating jobs? What is the role of the private sector? And is there a Karnataka model which other states can also follow? And joining us to debate this, we have Mr. K.J. George, who's, of course, the Large and Small Industries Minister. We have Priyank Kharge joining us also from the Cabinet. Thanks for being here. We have Mr. Naganand Doreswamy, of the MD of Idea Spring, Mr. Muthu Kumar, who's the head of CII in Karnataka, Manish Sabarwal of TeamLease, and Amit Basole of Azim Premji University. So let me just start the ball rolling by getting each of you to comment on whether you think that we are facing a problem of jobs in India at the moment. Something which has always been there. There's always been a challenge to do job creation in India. But is it more acute than earlier?
You know, the young population of India is about 60-65%.
Right.
Naturally, we need more jobs. Main thing is industry, we have to encourage. Agriculture, we have to encourage. All these sectors are there.
Right.
But all depend upon the policies of the central government also. We cannot isolate ourselves from the central government. But as far as Karnataka is concerned, we are doing well. I think that national average also, the growth story is, we are okay. The main challenge, the people who are coming out of the institutions.
Right.
They are academic, this thing. They are only theoretic. We have to give them practical this thing. That's why state government of Karnataka, we introduced a department is skill training, the thing that we are giving emphasizes to the skill training.
Right.
I think that is a very important thing.
If anybody is trying to deny that there is a job crisis in the country, they're fooling themselves. Looming large, and it's very high. And more importantly, is there a Karnataka model for the job crisis? Yes, definitely we have a Karnataka model for the job crisis. And I think what we are doing is something that is replicable through other states as well, is that we are trying to strengthen things at the bottom of the pyramid. We are not trying to look directly at investments. We are trying to create an ecosystem of trying to make our youth more employable. So we are trying to see small interventions, good interventions at the bottom of the pyramid.
So if I could just ask you, Mr. Muthukumar, that from the point of view of the private sector, as Priyank says, to deny the fact that there's a job crisis would be fooling oneself. But from your point of view, how acutely do you find it? How serious do you think it is right now?
If you look at the overall scenario in the state or in the country, yes, there is a crisis and a lot of unemployment issues is there. The biggest challenge for us today in the industries is Karnataka government has been very, very positive in terms of creating the policies. You look at whether it's a logistics policy, which is the fastest job creation here, EV policy in automobile, which is creating, and aerospace policy. Karnataka has always been pioneer. And if you look at the Make in India and Make in Karnataka, Karnataka has been much ahead for decades for creating like a concept like Make in India. May not be called. So it's always more than 50% of the top 100 companies, their technology center is here. The biggest challenge today is creating job and creating innovation of making the people.
If we broadly agree that there has been a worsening of the job environment in India, what would you identify as one or two key reasons that has made things worse? Because unemployment has always been a challenge in a country like India. What do you think has aggravated it recently that has become such a hot button issue?
In the long run, unemployment has not been India's issue. One of the reasons why it's on the front burner today is because of the changes that have happened precisely in the last 10 or 15 years, which is a change in the nature of the labor market in India. So we have an increasing supply of more higher educated people, and that has been increasing rapidly, particularly in the last decade and a half, which means that these are people who are not going to accept any reserve job in the informal sector, etc., which maybe a generation ago their parents and so on would have done. So they're looking for something better.
India has a wages crisis. And I will submit the question that you asked, that what has changed? Nothing has changed. 50% of India worked in agriculture 50 years ago, it works today. 11% of India worked in manufacturing 50 years ago, it's still 11% today. And 50% was self-employed 50 years ago, and it still is 50% today. What has changed is the Indian youth is no longer willing to accept self-exploitation. And I'm happy to challenge you with numbers. There has been no change in India's unemployment rate since 1952.
So all the numbers that are coming out of all these different reports, whether it's the NSSO, whether it's CMI, all of them indicating that unemployment has worsened. You're saying
it's between 4 and 6% since independence. Yes, it has. It has bounced between 4 and 6%.
Okay.
And it's still bouncing.
But it's remained within that range.
Since independence, 4 to 6%. What we can argue is,
yes,
what is poverty? Now, based on your definition of needs, wants, and desires, it's 25% or 75% of the population. I agree with that.
Interesting point. Can I just ask you, Naganan, to come in on that? Because Manish makes the interesting point that unemployment hasn't worsened. It's expectations, particularly of the young, that has changed. But Bangalore is a big hub for IT, for innovation. Is that, I mean, there seems to be a lot of excitement. There's a lot of funding and investment that's coming in. But is that actually creating jobs?
So I think to that question, Bangalore is in fact creating a lot of jobs. Let me give you a couple of examples of what has happened in the startup world, right? If you take Big Basket, for example, it's a 4-year-old company. Today they are processing 9,000 metric tons of direct produce from farmers. They have 5,000 plus employees, right, and have 18,000 blue-collared workers. We see that startup is like, it's kind of the growth for what is going forward. Like we saw what IT services companies did. Like I was talking to you before, we are, in 2020, we expected $245 billion revenues coming out of this.
Sure.
And what is going to now generate the next set of jobs in the market? I fundamentally believe startups will be a very large contributor, and we see that happening.
We are trying to bring in a change and make our youth more employable at the bottom of the pyramid because their aspirations have changed. Like he said, people don't want to work in the farms anymore. So if I have to ensure that people, the youngsters become more employable, I need to give them skill sets that make them more employable, whether it's a high-paying job, sure, or whether he wants to become, or he or she wants to become an entrepreneur. And I think we're the only government that helps you do both. So like you rightly said, yes, maybe their aspiration does not want them to be delivery jobs as well.
Okay.
And also we are trying to see how we can make our graduates more employable by getting in interventions through centers of excellence in emerging technologies. So like my co-panelist was suggesting, there are not enough high-paying skill jobs because your curriculum that you are delivering at the higher education system is just not enough.
Right.
So we are coming up with centers of excellence in emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, animation, gaming, agri-tech, aerospace. So all these are not, I'm not just saying it here, it's already functional.
Are government jobs still an option? Because if you look at the numbers nationally, I'm sure even in Karnataka, how many more jobs can you add as a government?
I don't think that everybody can expect a government job. As far as government is concerned,
yes,
directly we are giving about 6 lakhs job. Most of our 40% of the budget will go for that. See, we have to think dignity of labor also.
Right.
We cannot see, ours is a democratic setup. And we got opportunity to everybody to achieve the highest. They have to aim for highest. But if they can't, then we have to train them. We have to skill them because they have to earn their livelihood. Their families depend upon them. That's why we have to think inclusive growth.
Right.
That's what we have to think. Where we have to step in, we have to see the farmers should get a remunerative rate. And the worker who works in the factory also, the other fields, industry, they should get sufficient wages so that they can give a comfortable living.
I just want to ask you, Amit, about another phenomenon, which is of jobless growth. And you could have very high, fast-growing states like Karnataka and others getting a lot of investment, but not necessarily creating enough jobs. And I actually came across a CRISIL report, which came out towards the end of last year, which said that 12 large states grew faster than national GDP in FY18, but that same hasn't translated into job creation. 11 states have recorded lower growth in employment-intensive sectors such as manufacturing, construction, trade, hotels, transport, so on and so forth. These are states like Karnataka, Gujarat, Haryana, and so on. So is that a challenge as well?
It is not true that the structure of the Indian economy has not changed in the last 50 years, as was being said. There's been employment structure also has changed a lot. People are leaving agriculture in big numbers, and it has declined steadily as expected. What hasn't happened is an increase in manufacturing. They're absolutely right that we are stagnant. So this jobless growth phenomenon, and which is, as I mentioned, a global phenomenon, essentially what's happening is that you can get large increases in GDP growth without commensurate or expected, let's say, increases in employment growth, and because productivity is rising very rapidly. And now it is true that the government cannot give everybody a job, but it is also true that we have a big crisis of public goods in the country, goods that only the government can provide, by which I mean everything from law and order to sanitation to health and education. All of these things are accepted services or goods provided by the government, which we severely underprovide.
Right.
And providing those means creating jobs. So I would never give up the idea that the public sector can create more jobs.
Right.
They need not be the kind of jobs that we've been used to.
Karnataka is the same GDP as UP with one-third the number of people, because Karnataka is more productive. We have more productive sectors, we have more productive firms, and we have more productive individuals. Poverty is about productivity. Sectors, IT only is 0.7% of India's labor force. It generates 8% of our GDP. Sure. Agriculture is 50% of this. So we have to pick the right sectors as we're picking through clusters. Right. We have to pick the right firms. India has 63 million enterprises. 12 million don't have an office, 12 million work from home, only 6 million pay GST, only 1 million pay Provident Fund, only 18,500 companies in India have a paid up capital of more than 10 crores.
Right.
Karnataka is disproportionately formal, therefore will pay, and then obviously a skilling program.
There are two things: creation of job in India, and second thing is competitiveness across the global. Today the market is global. If you want to compete with the other global, you also cannot have a hard labor factory, but also you should have a smart factory. With the Industry Revolution 4.0 coming in, look at what Karnataka is doing. Karnataka is migrating its people, creating its skills. There are 9 skill centers in various sectors.
Yes.
I'm talking about automobile, electronic, ESDM, to make sure that the future employment is in the next generation employment. In terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of electronic interface, is what people are trained from the colleges to get into the slot.
But is that really going to address the unemployment problem? Because how many people can really qualify for those sorts of jobs?
That is where, rather than talking about skill development, which we all have been talking for a long time in the traditional manufacturing, and to the due comments, we have never crossed more than 15% on the gross GDP in the manufacturing.
Right.
Today, we have to de-skill and get into this newer technology. That means when you're going into an artificial intelligence, what you're doing is you're de-skilling the person's jobs also, thereby making the average person to perform extraordinarily well. Okay. And if the government policies and the institution people who comes out is going to work in this direction, which is what the policy makers are, an effective policy maker and efficient administrators are doing here, which will certainly create a lot of job opportunities.
Ms. Doraiswamy, I just want to ask you about angel tax. Again, talking about restrictions which are holding us back. Again, how much of a problem has that been? I mean, I believe there are now some measures from the government to try and
I think angel tax should go away. I absolutely hate it, because when angels are putting money, the income tax has all the information about the people who are investing in the company.
Right.
I think they should look at the kind of investors that have put the money in the company and not go tax the startup. If they say, okay, I'm going to take away 30% of the funding you've got, the startups will close down. And then startups have to exist. And the initial stages where they get money is through friends and family and through angels. And that is very, very important for the ecosystem. So I'm not sure why the income tax department is not going and looking at the kind of people who are investing. And it's a right opportunity for them to tax people if they think they are investors who didn't have the money, right? If they're not paying taxes, how are they investing? So rather than doing that, they're going and hurting people who actually pay taxes and investing, which to me looks completely lopsided. It doesn't make sense to me at all. So I think it has hurt. The angel tax should go, and the IT department should start looking at the investors who have put the money, and if they have not paid taxes, go catch them, not the startups.
Okay, we have very little time before we go to questions. So I just want to ask each of you, because we started talking about the Karnataka model, but we couldn't quite see it through. So if I can get each of you to just explain very briefly, what is it historically, do you think, I mean, not just currently, but historically, that Karnataka has been doing, which has put it in a better position as a state, whether it's to do just generally with job creation or with investment and just being a more financially healthy, economically healthy state? Sir, starting with you. If you could identify one thing.
Some of our public sector has not adopted the changes. For example, ITI. They are pioneer in telephone industries. HMTs, they are pioneer in watch industry.
Right.
When changes happen, they didn't change.
Right.
They have faced the closer industry. That's why today we are passing through a phase where the changes is fastly taking place. If the industry wanted to survive, we have to adopt the latest technologies.
Right.
That's what.
So that's something which you're saying is an important lesson.
Very important. Otherwise, you'll miss the bus.
Karnataka, historically, what was the advantage?
I think
which other states can learn from?
I think two important things that we've always done is number one is willingness to listen. So all our policies that have evolved are because of our engagement with the stakeholders.
Okay.
We don't come up with policies without consultations of the stakeholders.
Right.
Whether it's like I mentioned, the whole slew of policies of startup policy, IT policy, agri policy, whatever policy it is, we involve the stakeholders.
Karnataka has always been very, very strong for its knowledge and skill. We are pioneers in creating engineering colleges. The next generation people we created always have been good in terms of knowledge and skill. But what is specifically more is for the people here, we call this as simple as the ABC in our industrial thing. Create a very, very positive attitude, that is a willingness to change. Focus on customer, focus on innovation. So even though we have a lot of migrants here, they come and adapt to this change. They come and take this change and then grow for the better.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so I think Bangalore is the intellectual capital because of two things. One is open society, culture is, we have welcome people, and two is weather. I don't think you can find Bangalore weather anywhere else. So that's the central attraction. And city, hopefully, we are working towards improving the infrastructure, and with that, we'll see more happening here.
Okay, let's hope climate change doesn't change that. Manish?
Karnataka is the most urbanized, financialized, formalized, industrialized, and human capital state in the country by many metrics. And finally, productivity is about urbanization, formalization, industrialization, financialization, human capital. If you get those five right, then you set off a virtuous cycle in productivity, which I think has happened in Karnataka, both because of, and that's largely driven by human capital.
Okay. Amit?
So if there's any place that it's true that we have a wage problem, not a job problem, it's probably Karnataka. Right?
Any place where
this is true that it's a wage problem clearly and not a very big jobs problem, it is probably Karnataka.
Okay.
I should say that. Different in other parts of the country.
Okay, let me just take it to the floor for questions. If you can all put up your hands, whoever has questions. Yes, gentleman there in the front.
It's actually, industry department is in the Karnataka, it's we are doing west. At the same time, we have to think about the minimum wages and the ITBT and industry department. It should be somewhere we have to make them squeeze between them. Then only we can tell all this is the only three part we have to think about that. And Karnataka.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. You want to respond to that, yeah.
Karnataka, we got a policy of 2014 to 19 industrial policy. We wanted to take all the manufacturing unit out of Bangalore city. We are developing Kolar, we are developing Chikballapur, we are developing Mysore, Mangalore, Kalburgi, Hubli, Dharwad, Belagaum, all the places they are coming up very well. Now, I think industries are started there.
Okay.
But mainly this ITBT is concerned. I think that it's always concentrated in Bangalore city because of the technical talents, much out, and the people who wanted to start the industry also there.
Right.
Otherwise, we are giving all incentives to take out the manufacturing, other industry from Bangalore to others. We already made a plan. I think thanks to our former industries with Deshpandeji. I think whenever I go other districts, I'm so much impressed what an infrastructure we are developing. And thanks to the former Chief Minister and the present Chief Minister also. We are getting all the encouragement. I think that he will also agree with me.
Okay.
My name is Vishwanathan from NASCOM. Question to the ministers here. Karnataka has always evolved as an innovation capital, entrepreneurship capital, as Naganand also said. Is there any plan you can throw data being available in the public domain for us to crunch the data, create the next artificial intelligence model so that Karnataka emerges the newer digital technology era, the leaders once again? That could be a role model for other states to follow.
So I think that's a very valid point, considering that government is the biggest repository of data. So if you see our BMTC and KSRTC data, that's already open source. I mean, people can access it and use it for crunching numbers. Even certain Data is also available from the traffic police that of the city itself. But if there's any particular data that you are looking at and you are willing to help us out with, that's always an open offer, because we have NASSCOM as our valued partners, is our centers of excellence or something. All you need to do is make a request. But most of our data which can be shown is already online. So, but if you want to work together with that data, I don't see any problem with that. And all you need to do is just reach out to us.
When we talk about investing in industry and using that as a vehicle to create jobs, many of the deaths today in India are linked with some of the commercial substance, say whether it is tobacco, alcohol. Much of the new investments in food industry is all about ultra processing of the food, right, which is one of the biggest risk factor that India is facing today. Somebody referred to cholesterol, and that is quite interesting. So I was wondering, as regulators who regulate industry and promote industrial growth, do we have really, I don't see much emphasis on, do we sort of focus on some industry and not others, and do we have this health lens on our mind? Because ultimately that's going to be terrible if we really promote industries which are going to fuel some of the big epidemics of today.
Health, of course, I think is a primary focus of any government, because I think that is the most important aspect, especially when your social demographic, you have more youngsters. And your Ayushman Bharat scheme, that is of the government, we are the only state government in the entire country that have also put in our effort and have our budget also included, and have called it Ayushman Bharat Arogya Karnataka scheme.
Right.
So you'll have a universal health card plugged into the state system as well. So, and
I think he was talking also about regulating unhealthy industries.
That also, industry practices also we are trying to do. I'm just talking about the health sector in general.
Okay.
And regulating the health thing also is something that we are very keen on. In fact, what kind of, since we have a very high biotech industry and also a pharmacy industry here, we are doing that as well. So probably we can take this conversation offline so that we can...
Okay, all right. We're completely out of time. We'll have to leave it there. But thank you all so much for being a terrific panel, a great audience, and I think some important lessons on job creation from Karnataka, which perhaps the rest of the country may also want to follow. Thanks very much indeed. So let's just have a round of applause for our panel. Thanks very much.